one of the leading futurists in this marketplace. So we're going to put the lights down low for Gerd's presentation. It's high-octane stuff. Could we give Gerd an extremely warm welcome, please?
All right, thanks very much. The lights go down. That's good. Okay, great to be here. I'm delighted to speak to you about what's coming in telemedia. As you can see, one of my key thoughts is disruption and lubrication. I'll explain to that what that means in a second. Right? It's not dangerous, don't worry. My central thought really is that today, if you're in the telecom business, you are, in fact, in the media business. Probably even worse, if you're in the media business, you may as well be in the telecom business in the future. Just briefly talking about what I do as a futurist, people are really wondering sometimes, what does a futurist do? We don't predict stuff, we listen. There's a Chinese saying that says, if you want to know the future, ask your children. That's sort of what we do. So we do research and talk to people and basically try to create foresights, what we call foresights, for the next 3 to 5 years, mostly in telecom, media, and entertainment. Here are some of the clients. We work with content companies, we work with record labels, publishers, broadcasters, and of course IT companies and the Googles and others of this world. So we see all different things from different sides. Ray Kurzweil, who's a really interesting guy, the founder of the Singularity Movement, which is rather scary, said something very interesting. He said, a kid in Africa with a smartphone today has more information than the President of the United States 15 years ago. And this is so true. Right? I mean, when you think about this, right now on the mobile phone, we can verify something immediately. Right? We can give you a rating. We can criticize your movie online. We can complain to customer service about delays with the airline. If you use the flight tracker app at the gate, you'll have more information about the flight leaving than the woman at the gate. Right? That's called consumer empowerment. In many ways now, our world, not just in political terms with the Arab Spring and others, looks a little bit like this, right? Where all of a sudden consumers have become this really powerful entity. Very soon, 5.5 billion people connected to the web on mobile devices, and it's what I call the people formerly known as consumers. Right? And we have to embrace this because what's happening is that because there are people who are no longer just stupid consumers who pay whatever it takes, now people are saying, you know, now we have a choice to bypass the offering and maybe do something that you haven't thought of, you know, ever since the days of Napster, that has become equal with illegal or free downloading. But not just that. I mean, basically, if you're looking at what people do today, they're consumers, they're producers, they're participants. The only reason I still watch CNN, if I ever watch television at all, it's Twitter. Because CNN uses Twitter now as a major source of revenues. And I've just become a member of a CNN iReport crew to where you can upload comments and stuff and input into CNN, right? So CNN has already become a conglomeration like many other TV channels have of this phenomenon. Now, Kevin Kelly, who's the founder of Wired magazine and now the chief maverick, he calls himself at Wired, he said basically what's happening is that we have become people of the screen. Check the taxi next time you go in London or Singapore or any other big place in the world. There's at least 5 screens in the front of the taxi. Right? The GPS, the guy's Facebook page, the taxi thing, right? And a bunch and people are actually doing Facebook while driving, which is bizarre. Right? The other day I had a guy with a computer like this doing Facebook while he was driving. So we're now people of the screen. In Asia and many places, you know, if we travel around the world, we're seeing big ads projected onto buildings. Right? I mean, basically, you can now communicate with the bus stop and download a song from a bus stop. Right? So we're people of the screen, and now we're also people of the cloud. Okay? People of the cloud means we have gotten used to the fact that our media, our education, MIT Open Courseware project, right? Our health records, everything that's digital will be digital and will live in the cloud. So we use music services like Spotify or Morg or RDO or many others, and all the stuff we discussed in the late 90s and the internet years has become true. We have the virtual jukebox in the sky. This is great news to you in the telecom business, right? Because there is no cloud without the connection to the cloud and somebody running the cloud. But of course, the other thing is that people of the cloud will expect a lot more than just mere connectivity. I mean, why does it matter if I can get a song for free or a movie for free? Does it matter It matters financially, but really what I want is I want relevance. I want the right song. I'm looking to get a lot more than a free download. I mean, after I've gotten my free downloads, then the next thought is, okay, is this a good movie? Is the quality good enough? Right? I mean, the commerce model is based on anything else but distribution. I'll explain to you in a second, going back to Kevin Kelly, who said something very smart, cut right out from his video at the TOC conference, where Kevin talks about what has happened is the shift from the file, from the page to the stream, and the shift from the desktop to the cloud. Right? So this is a trend that we're seeing, especially in mobile devices. It's all about streams, tags, clouds, and flows. This is also very good news for the content owner. Because guess what? You can't pirate an experience. You can't steal emotions. I mean, you can try, but it's very hard to copy something that's uniquely connected to other things. Right? That leads to a phenomenon called social DRM, social copy protection, which means that if I log into an account with my name, I would be very unlikely to share this account with 50 people because they pollute my profile. Right? They change what I look like there. For example, I use Spotify a lot, which is a great music service. And when I use Spotify, people on my Facebook page can see what I'm listening to. Now, if my wife is also listening to Spotify with the same username, right, people will think, what in the world is he listening to? Right? It's not me, it's her, right? But they don't know. So basically what we're seeing here is a shift towards the stream, the tag, and the cloud. And especially in Southeast Asia, this is going to be a huge business. Not just in terms of transporting it, which is a big business, right? But in terms of filling it with meaning and social connectivity and value. In most countries, people care a lot more about their time than they care about money. And this is a trend that we're seeing in general. I think ultimately this idea of scarcity, locking something up to make it more valuable, and the idea of distribution as a value factor, in my view, is rotating, is changing. I think it's more about ubiquity, about selection, and about relevance. What Kevin Kelly calls the new generatives, the new way to make money. This is why we shouldn't care. Let people download for free. I mean, what we have to care about is how we can monetize ubiquity and selection, relevance, service, timeliness, and so on. As Nicholas Negroponte says from MIT, says, we don't want 1,000 channels, we want the one to watch. Right? If Disney is going to be that one channel that we want to watch, let me have this channel in a way that I'm willing to pay for it. Right? That is the future of distribution over the top. I mean, if you're looking at these trends, clearly Asia-Pacific trends, what's happening in terms of time spent on the internet. I mean, the time is huge here, 25 hours a week in Singapore, 564% mobile traffic growth. I mean, you've seen all these numbers, right? I mean, clearly that's what people want. You see total mobile internet users, for example, in China, of course, it's huge, but Indonesia only roughly 19 million, with a country of 240 million. We have a long way to grow, right? There's a lot of new things happening there. If you're looking at these numbers, all the money is being made on the top, right? Mobile apps, advertising. So if you're in the telecom business, you have to wonder about this. How do you participate? You discussed this yesterday. My view is clearly you will not participate unless you collaborate with what's happening over the top. And if you look at these numbers, I think they're vastly underrated, in fact. But clearly in television, teach as a great lesson, every single television in the next few years will be connected to the internet. And this is great news, of course, for the people making those programs, because now you know who they are, they can give you feedback, they can collaborate, you can charge them for other things, you can sell data, you can sell ads. Right? I mean, all good news. Of course, the main news is that people are connecting through the television like they used to at the water cooler in the 50s. When you watch I Love Lucy in 1960, 70% of Americans watch the same movie. That's down to 4% now. So now with social media, people are sitting down using, for example, ITV Live app in the UK, watching the ITV show and chatting on Twitter and Facebook. 50% of the viewers are talking about the show on their mobile devices while they're watching it. This is a huge development that has a lot of benefits, I think, for everybody in the food chain. So what's happening here, for example, the example of YouTube, is that over-the-top content is exploding. First, of course, content aggregation, as you can see with YouTube. the new movie channel on YouTube, featured live streaming on YouTube, and of course YouTube Leanback, which is designed for your television, just runs automated programs while you're watching. It's, I think, youtube.com/leanback. And now YouTube adding new content providers. Right? I mean, clearly content aggregation and curation is big on YouTube, but the second step is that all these guys, and there's about 50 of them, right, from QQ and Tencent to many other companies around the world, getting into content production. YouTube has just dedicated $100 million for the production of TV shows. And of course, Amazon is now becoming the biggest distributor of electronic books and therefore also a publisher. Netflix has just exclusively licensed the TV show Mad Men that will only be available over the top on Netflix. Facebook will go public probably tomorrow, no, just kidding, sometime in the next few weeks. And they're also going to get into production. Right? So clearly Disney has already done this. I think the deal is about 10 days old or so, where Disney and YouTube will create a TV show based on Where's My Water. So you're going to see a lot of old meets new in the next few years. And as a telecom and an ISP or a mobile operator, if you're not part of this, you're in deep trouble. Because all that stuff will happen on top of the network, and all the money will be made on top of the network, and you're just going to finance and run the network, and that's it. And you can charge people for the network. Ever less, of course, over time. Facebook is a great example, almost 1 billion users. Okay, Facebook clearly has achieved ubiquity in most places. Now, Facebook is becoming essentially cable TV without the cable. Facebook will raise $100 billion on the stock market. Let's be conservative and say 50. Okay, how much content can they license with $50 billion? They have already licensed Warner Brothers movies, Miramax, Disney, I'm not sure, Nicholas would tell you. But clearly, Facebook is a platform. Right? It's an infrastructure platform, and social is the new broadcast. That doesn't mean all broadcasters will go away. They will not. But clearly, advertising money will shift towards these platforms. We're talking about a global advertising budget of roughly $600 billion plus $400 billion in data mining and marketing, various marketing costs and so on. So roughly, you can expect 1/3 of that money to shift towards mobile video interactive, $300 billion. And that's what's going to hurt, of course, the old guys, right? So social connectivity, social programming guide, SMS being replaced by social media. In telecom, we're moving from communications to content. And that doesn't mean communications won't happen. Of course, they will. But now we're moving towards content. And as Kevin Kelly again points out, the internet is a giant copy machine. There isn't a whole lot we can do about this. What we can do about this is, of course, to try to monetize what people do there with mobile devices, with the cloud. Embracing what goes on essentially in the content industry, we have to help these guys understand that we're shifting from a copy economy to the access economy. And of course, they all know that, right? But what does it mean? How do we create a model based on the access economy? That's a bit of a reset, as we can see in digital music, for example. Now, we're clearly living in this world now where you guys over here, you guys are the cat, right? The telecoms and ISPs looking at the mouse as the content business. Because, basically the telcos are roughly, I think, about $6.5 trillion business. And entertainment is 1.5, so there's a bit of a difference there. But clearly, we're moving into an era that I call telemedia. And this is very scary to both parties because clearly it's unknown, right? We used to live in this world, the world of silos, content, telcos, distribution, device makers. Now, if you want to live in this world, it's game over. And it will take about 5 years to really be felt in all territories. Right? But clearly, we're moving into a world where these kind of devices are useless without content, but they're equally useless without connectivity. So that is the marriage that I see in the future. I call this telemedia. I think we're going to see all the pieces of this ecosystem build a new pie that we have, I think, discussed yesterday. All different people, and of course, the new players being social networks and search and tech companies. So the challenge is for you to find a new role. Much like most other companies have to find new roles now. For example, Audi, the car maker, is spending 20% of their R&D budget, I think about 12% actually, on making a new car that's a self-driving car. You don't drive it yourself. Another 10% is spent on building wind turbines for energy in the future. Little to do with cars, but a lot to do with technology. If you're looking at this graph here, clearly from smartphone adoption in the next few years, future revenue is in what they do there, not the fact that they can do it. In other words, it's not so interesting that they can download and do stuff on the web, but how they do it, what they do, what they want, when they do it, who they do it with, and so on. That is the value that I see in the future. If you're looking at this chart of market caps from GF in September 11, clearly you have to ask the question, who will be the new telemedia leaders to put the fear into you for this day? Look at these guys, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Facebook. They do have the money. So it's time, I think, to move in this direction with Facebook preparing a $100 billion IPO. That clearly is a challenge for you in the future. These guys may very well eat some of your lunch in the future. Especially in Asia, right? This guy over there, the Tencent CEO, right? In many ways has a lot more juice coming up than the guys in America because they understand the market. So if you're looking at the business model, for example, in the past of Apple, right, sell content to sell hardware. Right? I mean, look at the pie chart of revenues of Apple. They have hardly made any money selling content. And they don't intend to, really. They charge for it, yes, but really what they sell is hardware. Analogous for ISPs, bundle content to sell core services. We already have this in TDC in Denmark, IRCOM in Ireland. It's the same logic. So in other words, you could even argue for saying make content free in parentheses and raise money from selling your services. Right? That's a trend that we're seeing disrupt and lubricate, as I said before. Amazon Kindle being the best example here. Right? Nobody asked Jeff Bezos to make the Kindle. Now he sells more Kindle books than he sells printed books. Let this be a lesson to us. I think we have to become market makers. If you sit in this room and you're saying, I'm a market waiter, you'll be toast in 3 years. Because now it's about making new markets, creating models that are not totally obvious. If they were obvious, then you wouldn't be sitting here asking the question what to do. Looking at what's happening in music, right? Streaming over the top, right? Market making requires disruption, which means that the content owners have to accept that the model is different, but also the telcos have to accept that they have to engage. They have to actually solve a problem. Otherwise, what's the point? All the good innovation the last 5 years were about disruption. Skype, eBay, Amazon, Twitter, right? Constant disruption. Look at Indonesia, another good example where I do a lot of work with Telkom Indonesia. Clearly, the question you have to ask, why would you leave it to others to monetize content? These guys from 4Shared here make $40 million a year with advertising, giving content away for free. How much more of that are we going to sit by and say, well, you know what, we can actually do this better and make money, but Facebook is number one. Will they do this? Clearly, they will. Not much to compete with. So I would encourage you for the rest of the day to look at interconnected business models. Right? Business models based on advertising, devices, content, telecom. To think about the theme of disruption and lubrication. Lubrication meaning that you make it work because you have scale. This is the biggest thing here. And of course, ultimately, it's going to be mostly about finding a way to use data. This cartoon shows it very nicely, says a very important trend, right? It's free, but they sell your information. This is Google, Facebook, Twitter. Right? Google makes $2.8 billion a month selling our information. And Facebook will make the same, if not more, selling our information and giving us free content. Right? Can you sell and use people's information? You can. You have to ask for permission. Right? There's a few minor things you have to keep in mind for this. So clearly what's happening in our future is that we're looking at content, advertising, data, and users converging. And of course, the reverse is also true. Users, content, data, and advertising. Very important to remember for our future. Data is the new oil. It's been said many times, but it's definitely becoming true. Data is the major driver of this economy, right? The internet economy. And we have to get engaged to use this data also, of course, to deliver advertising. I'm a little bit out of time, so I'm just going to give a quick glimpse at the issue of free. A trend that we see around the web, which is clearly a winning trend, is to make something free only to then sell something larger, right, called freemium. Evernote, Dropbox, Skype, LinkedIn, right, all those models are based on freemium models. In fact, cable TV, of course, is a freemium model because it's essentially free, which means below cost when people sign up initially, right? You subsidize it, just like the Kindle is essentially a freemium model. So I think this is a model that we're going to see a lot in the future. It's based on this logic of saying, okay, it sort of feels like free, but it's not actually free in economic sense. Right? Money is being generated, people are getting paid, but it's very attractive, right? The principle being is that free or feels like free attracts people, and what goes beyond the free is what monetizes it. So this is a very important point, I think, in the key economy of scale, that you have the network effect in the telecom business. So I need to get to the end so we can get to our discussion, so I'm going to skip ahead here really quickly, and we'll dive into this. Just one more important slide is that Kevin Kelly talks about the new generatives, and here they are. If you want to know about this, just put in new generatives, Kevin Kelly, you'll find lots of stuff on the web. He's talking about how now, today, we have so many more things that are happening that are monetizing. For example, immediacy, personalization. Immediacy is, for example, being able to watch the new TV show on demand at the first time it actually runs live somewhere else, right? Not saved for later, or watching or downloading a show that you went to, right, on a concert. That's immediacy. A few examples, Metallica sells their music from all live shows on the web. Major League Baseball is about immediacy, is about being connected, very successful model. Virtual business, Farmville on Facebook. Right? I mean, these models all make a boatload of money. HD opera. In America, you can go to 200 theaters and watch the Met in a theater for $10 while it goes on in New York. Right? Making lots of money with this through this kind of model. So the future of content is going to be based on various things, not just paying money for content, which worked fine for a while, but will not work exclusively in the future, is by creating new ways of getting paid. One, through virtual currencies, Facebook money, Facebook credits, the use of personal data, time attention, which is called advertising, influence, reputation, and many other models. So this is our job for the future, is to create those business models that don't exist yet. It's not our job to recreate what used to be so we can put a Band-Aid on the current business. And this is quite a tough mission. I think basically for you guys, if you're in the telecom business, this is the game, right? In the past, it was a simple chess game, and then I'm a chess player, I love chess. It's controllable, right? If you know enough about it, the chances are you'll win the game, right? Because you just have to play it a lot, right? But now we have this game, right? We have a three-dimensional chess game. Right? Try to plan this game, right? It's going to be pretty tough. Which means that you have to do your current business, you have to do a new business, and you have to think about beyond the new business. And you have to think in 3 different levels. You have a current business, but the future business is not going to be about providing infrastructure and making a faster, cheaper network. Right? I mean, that's the business now, and it's still growing nicely, congratulations, but in 3 to 5 years, there is a new game. You have to think of that game today. Summary, and then we'll go to the panel. Disruption. Anything you do in content has to disrupt something that's not currently working. That's why most telecoms in the past and operators have tried to sell music. Didn't work because it wasn't disruptive. It was just a mirror reproduction of past models. Lubrication. If you've got 400 million users, you can lubricate. Right? You can make things work like very few others can. And free. You have the power to make things feel like free, bundling them into subscriptions, networks, operating devices, and so on, which is a very unique situation. Thanks very much. Here's my various stuff. You can download all my books from the internet. Just put in Gerd, G-E-R-D, and free PDF, and you can find them. I have also apps where you can download them. I have a new book on Kindle called The Future of Content. That's also available there. Thanks very much, and that's it.
Great. Thank you, Gerd.